Hello, everybody. It's Thursday, 8 June, the 8th of June. And today what's on the agenda is to discuss the outcomes of the governance round, which has now officially ended. We have a number of proposals, some very interesting ones that we can dive in a little bit further and determine if and how we want to organize a community vote on some of these topics. I think also some of the topics require a little bit more in-depth thinking, but we'll cover that next. Short note on the election process of the Supervisory Council. We have finalized the intake of the feedback. Thanks everybody who joined that. It was really helpful and insightful. We had an AMA with our existing supervisory council. We're now reviewing the documentation with some legal background to ensure that everything that we do is also aligned with the legal restrictions and limitations and guidelines of the Singularity Net Foundation and the current responsibilities of the Supervisory Council. I hope that will be a matter of days that we can publish that rather than weeks. So who knows where we are by the time that this video is published and you're watching this. So with that note, let's continue with the agenda of the day, and I will share my screen for that. One moment. All right. So you're seeing my screen right now. This first screen is just a list of all the proposals that have come in, with quite some interesting ones. By the way, we're a small group right now. Let me expand my view, one moment. Just 8 people right now. Oh, and more joining as we speak. So welcome Peter, welcome Rafael, welcome Guillermo, Joanna, Felix, Mauro, and Joel. Great to have you all here. So we have some very interesting topics. So my proposal for the agenda is as such. If you look at this list of proposals, some are in a more advanced stage than others. So I think some of them we can discuss immediately if and how we want to put them up to a community vote, while others are more explorative and would really deserve some further conversation and discussion and exploration, which will be very interesting. And that's basically also how I propose to divide the session today. So in the agenda, so the first topic would be to finalize proposals that are ready and suitable for a community vote, in my personal opinion, but if you have a different view on that, I would love to hear that. And I would say that there are 2 proposals that are on that stage. One, rewarding proposers, but not winners. This is about reputation rewards. A proposal by Mauro, so I'm very glad you're here, Mauro. You were there last time too, but just at the last 5 minutes or so, I think. And the other one is by the deep funding team itself, safeguarding the added value of proposals to the AI platform. So I would like to discuss with you, we'll go in depth a little bit later. And then there are a number of topics that are all very interesting. And I would love to discuss with you, but I don't think we'll finish that tonight. I think it will take more time and more deeper dive to be able to get to the bottom and to get it to a stage where maybe it will become a community proposal. So these are a new one, Deep Funding Verified Users by Guillermo, Deep Funding Academy, Deep Funding Talent Scout program. This is what we landed upon last time. It was a suggestion, or at least the wording was proposed by Fly. and Guillermo took it up on himself to make a proper proposal out of it. So thank you for that. Generating deep funding tokens, Felix, thank you for that one. I definitely think that would require more in-depth discussion. Also the first one, by the way. And engage ideators, we talked about that last time. I think so we already have a pool for that. I think everybody agrees it would be good to have some way on making it easier for people to propose their ideas, but I think we're stuck here a little bit in the how, not whether we should do it, but detail more. Is the pool enough? Should there be another way to just contribute with ideas, and how exactly will we do that? So I think we could park this for a short while until we have a better crystallized idea. And then there are a few that I think we don't need to discuss today. Reach out and educate technology departments. I think we mentioned last time that this would already be a feasible proposal for a regular deep funding round in the marketing pool. I can also imagine if you want to roll this out really big, that maybe that is not enough, that we should have a different way. But if that is the case, we should also have a more elaborate plan around that. I don't think it's ready in that sense for a community vote yet. And there were a few proposals that I think were really targeted at the supervisory council election. There was some confusion there, so let's not spend too much attention on that. So that would be my proposal for an agenda. Any ideas, improvements, remarks, cheers? No cheers?
Cheers, yes.
No, that's never discussed about this. Nice.
Looks solid.
Sorry? Oh, looks solid. Yeah, okay.
Solid.
That's a cheer, yeah. All right, thanks a lot. And then let's continue. So for today, I would say I think we should really do 1 A and B. We should be able to finalize that. 2 is a discussion. We will start, and for sure, I'm very sure we will continue that in the weeks and perhaps months to come. So that is not something that we will completely finalize, most likely. But let's make an effort to have at least point 1 A and B finalized. So, yeah, let's start with this one. So I took the liberty also because of making effective use of all our time to already present this in a format that we could use for voting. Of course, we can change the wording or whatever. We can change everything. We can change the number of questions, etc. But let me start by this proposal and see what you think. Hello, Sebastian, Joram, Ubio. Good to see you all here. So a little bit of context here for those who are not aware about that. In the last deep funding round, we awarded for the first time contributors, people who gave feedback on proposals, not only with reputation, but also with rewards based on gained reputation. And at some point, we had to make a decision whether we would also award proposers or not. And this was something that wasn't defined in advance. So we made a decision on that during the round. And the thinking at that time was, if somebody submits a proposal, then we assume he's already very engaged. So we would like to reserve the awards for regular community members that are engaged and are not submitting a proposal. That was our thinking at the time. But we also had some new insights. We saw that actually some proposers were also very engaged community members, and were also giving feedback on pools and other proposals that were not their own, and I assume in some cases very genuine and authentic. So the question is then again, do we want to reward these proposers for that? So we discussed that. First of all, we made a decision, but based on feedback that we got from the community, we reversed that decision. And in round 2, ultimately, we treated everybody the same. So all proposers, all people, whether proposer or no proposer, got rewarded for their contributions. But going to the next round, this is something to revisit, and now in advance, because now we're aware of this situation, and we would like to have common understanding on what is the best way forward. So I took it upon me to based on the discussions and based on your proposal, Mauro, to define some answers. I'll read them. But maybe after that you can give some feedback, or anybody else who would like to. So it occurs to me that before answering this question, maybe we should also address the question, should we be rewarding? And if we are rewarding people who contribute, in what way? Should it be in AGIX, or should it be in a more intangible way, non-monetary way? And this also ties into the proposal of Felix, who is doing stuff on my screen. Maybe we can remove this guy somehow. Thank you. Thank you for your contribution. I don't think you will be rewarded for this one. This also ties into the proposal from Felix of creating a deep funding token. I'm sure some people are working hard on removing some people, so okay. So there's a proposal from Felix to have a deep funding token, but reputation in itself is also a kind of reward, you could say. And the question would be, do we additionally need to reward people in AGIX, yes or no? So that's the first part, in my opinion. And then the second part, and I would only tie this to AGIX at this point in time. If we are... So suppose we are doing an AGIX reward, then the question is, should proposers share in these rewards? And I identified 4 options. One, the most easy one, is we will treat everybody equally. That's option A. Option B, no, we should not award proposers because they are already incentivized and engaged. Those were actually the 2 options that we had in the last round. We started with option B, but we ended with option A. But there are 2 other flavors here. One is we will award proposers, but only if they are, or we will award proposers, but not if they already awarded with a winning proposal, because then they get compensated already. So then it's maybe a little bit over the top. And the last one would be, we will award proposers, but only for engagement in a pool. They are not submitting a proposal themselves, because you could say that people can be active in their own pool just to rule out the competition, and we don't want to award them for that. We want to make sure that the engagement is clean and real. I put a disclaimer here, and this is particularly for option D, I think. I'm not 100% sure if we can actually, if we should try to implement that with the current tooling. That would leave more risks for errors. All right, maybe Mauro, as the father of this proposal, you would like to give your view on this.
Thanks, Jan. And very related with the disclaimer, that's why I decide to go with option C and not an option D for my proposal. Understanding this very complex on the distribution of the rewards and how is it. So that's why I decide for proposal number C. And another thing is that we are small right now, so will be super interesting to test this this thing of award the proposals but not winners, because we can see how it's implemented and how it's going to see in the future, because we can start on the basis of this proposal and see in the future if we need to put limitations to that statement. All right. So, for example, in the future, if we see that the proposals try to, how to say it, avoid competition or fight with their own proposal in the same pool, we can set these limitations. But today, I think it's not necessary. First of all, because I would love to experimentate and see how it goes, and see how the community reacts to this good faith rule in the governance, and also knowing that the distribution of the rewards are really complex today. Related, if there is not to be with AGX, I remember the word of someone who I consider as a mentor and I really respect, that told me, for example, what happened with Linux tech community at first, that people were really interested with the tech behind it, but the time that consumes participating, if there is not being awarded, will be more difficult to have that kind of engagement. So that's why I think it's super necessary to have this award in AGX and monetary reward.
All right.
And why I decide to put not winners. We discussed that, for example, in Telegram, it's an honor to be awarded by the community. And that's right. It's an honor because you win reputation with the comments, with the feedback, having calls, explaining your idea. And always you ask for a big amount of money that you receive if you make comments and feedback. But if you were not a winner, and you participate and you create feedback, helping others in your own pool, on other pools, to get a better quality idea and help them to get funded, from my perspective, it's pretty cool that we support that kind of conduct, that the way that people act, that way of people act. So that's why I decided to go to this path in this proposal. I don't know if I explain it very well right now, but that's the main idea, to support the good faith of people that are trying to promote quality in other pools and in the same pool, and reward all the job. If you were founded, of course, the amount you receive always will be bigger than you not. But if you are not founded and you help the people, and even in your own pool to get founded, have a little compensation for that time. So I like the Linux example, Linux tech community, and to show how important it is to award the time of the people that are really creating values. Of course, in the future, we will need to discuss again the quality of that comment and feedback, but that's another discussion for another day. But again, that's why I decide for the option C, reward proposals, not winners, to go to this path, because I think it's technically possible for right now. We can implement it right now, and will be a super good change to promote good feedback. And another thing, sorry, I'm taking a long time, but if one proposal wants to get founded and wants to get a reward for their comments, they can create today another profile in Swag. There is nothing that avoid that. So instead of encouraging the users to avoid the law or avoid this conduct, why we can't promote them to do this, to good quality feedback and gain some reputation to get awarded with the community, and if they are not awarded, reward their comments, their feedback, their time. That's all.
Thank you. Yeah, that last point is very significant. We can make all the rules we want, but if it's very easy for people to go around these rules, then yeah, it doesn't have a lot of impact. This is
And in a way,
we will have later, because there are some options there, perhaps. But let's see about that. And by the way, would you prefer me to continue to share the screen? I removed it because I want to change the layout of my screen for recording purposes. But if you prefer, I can also put that back. And I will also remove some distractions here. Would you prefer the screen share with the presentation, or would you prefer to see each other bigger?
I see that Guillermo say number 1 and Rafael number 1 too. So
we'll start sharing again. Okay, that's cool.
But yeah, that's another thing that I talked with Guillermo in one call, that if we say that the proposals can't receive an award for feedback and participation generating engagement, there is nothing that avoid that they create another user on Swai. So we as an institution, as a community, why we don't promote a conduct and that people create more value, right? How to create a path where we award good people with good feelings, with good intentions. That's how I see it. That's why I decide to go for number C in your slide.
Yeah.
Proposals should be awarded unless they have submitted a winning proposal.
Yeah, that's clear. Even though option D is not possible, usually I would say I wouldn't propose something to the community if I know it's not possible. But in this case, because it's just one of the options, I would like to have kind of a principled view of the community on this. And we can add in the disclaimer that maybe in the next round we will do it differently or whatever. So that is a side note. Another question to you, Mauro, but also to everybody else. Do you think we should be asking about part A? Is this a question you would want to ask the community at this stage? So the context here, we don't have to consult the community on everything, right? Only the most important things that are fundamental enough and for which we think we are ready. But please go ahead. I think, Sebastian, you were unmuting. Oh, you weren't? Oh.
No, but hello, everybody.
Mauro.
No, I think that the current system allows that when people receive AGICs, is a way also to promote them to vote in the next funding round. So it's a good way to keep the track and have AGICs utility and promote that again and again user have more AGICs. And for example, if some users in the deep funding round 3 only wants to participate with feedback because she don't have any money to vote, in the next funding round, she will be able to vote because he received some AGICs for participating in these activities and engagement with the deep funding. So in my opinion, the current system of award it's pretty cool, and I think it's a strong thing that deep funding has nowadays.
Yeah. So one thing here is what your preference is. Part A, I shouldn't have called it A and B and part A, but the other one, question here is, should we be asking the community now? So one consideration here is that maybe we'll need more in-depth discussion and experience with reputation, and with maybe a discussion on the deep funding token. And when we have had that discussion, maybe we'll have different insights and views, and maybe that's a better time to ask this question. So one option would be that we say, well, we will not ask this today. We will continue on the road where we are on. So we'll have one more round with AGIX rewards at least. And for this round, we'll just determine the way we will distribute it. And then maybe the round after that one or the after that one, we'll circle back on the more fundamental part. Should we or should we not reward in AGIX? And one downside that I see of rewarding in AGIX is that it opens the gates for, it incentivizes people to gamify it, and maybe it will attract a different kind of people. So on one hand, I would say I'm really, I think that if people contribute and they put a lot of time, and some people really put a lot of time and effort and gave great feedback. So I think they deserve some reward. There's no question about it. The other side of that is it might open the gates for more gaming activity and whatnot. But the main question here that we should first be answering is this the right time to ask this question? Yes or no?
I mean, it's the right time to ask it, but not the way, because the thing you say that people will be trying to game in the system is more related with set quality requirements for comments or high requirements for singing a user, like a cell phone or whatever. But this strategy is to avoid gaming the system and not related with the rewards. It's only my perspective and how I see it.
All right, now I have a clear signal of Sebastian.
Thank you. I think the point B is, I think it's a really good time to start to try some things. For example, in the part A point B. I came from Cardano, and in the Cardano ecosystem, I work with an organization called Gimba Labs, and we work mainly in the educational part. So we are working with this kind of technology using NFTs, metadata in the NFTs to register the information of the outcomes of the process, the educational process of each student. Each student has a token, a specific token, and that token is used to register the progress and the progress of each student in our programs. And when I was reading that part A, I think it's really it's this technology, this NFT technology using as a credential of a reputational credential it's not only important. The technology exists currently, and I think maybe Gimba Labs, my organization, or maybe other organizations can start to work in that front.
Yeah, so that's an interesting observation and an interesting conversation, which ties into Felix Deep Funding token. So there are a couple of questions there. What is the added value of token over reputation? If we want a token, should we use a token that's already there, the gimbals, or should we create a dedicated deep funding token? But I would like to save that discussion for a little bit later. the most important question right now is, do we want to ask this question? But Felix, you have your hand up.
I think it's maybe a little bit too early, because right now, for example, in this case, we speak about proposers in the same context as the executors as well. And this might change over the time. In 4 or 5 funding rounds, if we do everything right, we have a large pool of community members who are really good in proposals and help them actually to onboard, and they become more proposal administrators, let's say, for groups. And then the discussion might have much more value, because now we say, okay, we might really have to separate this, but not there yet. So I think it's solid to have this question already and to say, oh, okay, this represents the larger problem. But I think from my side, nothing but yet has the necessity to be worked on hardcore.
All right. While talking, I also get the feeling that there's so much discussion here. I think also having a matured reputation system might give different ideas about that, because if the reputation system is better, the chances of people gaming the system is lower. So that will open more doors to reward in AGIX. On the other hand, if we develop the other token, the utility and reputation more, maybe we'll find other things that offer value, which might sway us the other way. So thinking about this and discussing this with you, I think this is a very fundamental and important question. And because of that, I think we shouldn't ask it just now. I think we should be a little bit further in our thinking here before we propose this to the community, so that we also can outline what the consequences of this will be. Is this a decision that we can take unanimously, or are there people that have a different opinion, that think we should be asking this right now? Peter?
Well, it's not directly an answer to that question on whether we should ask it right now, but if we decide to ask it later, would that then imply that for until that question is asked, that we change the current setup? Or is that separate from it? Because so far we have been awarding a modest amount of AGIX, which during one round, because of price fluctuation, became in my mind, far from a modest amount.
Yeah. So that's a different topic. The amount. So how much will we award? And I think we need to make a kind of algorithm based on the amount of proposers and the exchange rate, etc., the amount of comments, so that we always have a reasonable amount, so that we're not surprised by sudden exchange changes in exchange rate, or a surge of engaged people or whatever. But we can make a rule about that, but we can do that later. Whether, so if we don't ask the question, of course, the other question is, do we continue now with rewarding in AGIX, or do we stop rewarding in AGIX and continue with reputation? I would say for the time being, let's do at least one more round with AGIX rewards, because the previous ones were strange. Because the first time it was a tryout and we had no idea how many people would engage, etc. So the rewards were quite high in the first governance round. In the second deep funding round, we had this huge surge in token price after we set the amount. So it was also quite high. So I think for the next round, it should be much lower than in round 2, but we can continue with AGIX, in my opinion. Felix?
One question on this. Actually, when we decide to, for example, something like this, I assume it's seen like an experiment. I was wondering, because this is coming more and more also stressed out by QADO and the archival work group in Singularity and the Buzzwords program, say if we do experiments, but we don't actually experiment. That means we don't develop a hypothesis on the beginning. We don't make sure how do we actually document the experiment, and by the end, how do we want to conduct the analysis and extract the learned lessons from the experiment, and why do experiments actually? And just would love to introduce a little bit the mindset of saying maybe formalizing this a little bit more and making sure we act in a framework where we understand experiments as experiments and we actually apply to some simple academic processes when it comes to experimentation. I think this might become insanely important over the time. If you would start to simply book this somehow and say, oh, okay, just setting up a simple Git book or something like this, over the time, it would create an insanely important library of knowledge where we can always refer back to and say, okay, would include also when does the experiment starts, when does the experiment stops. Like some very clear matrix, also to protect ourselves a little bit by just making clear on the beginning, okay, what are we actually doing? And
yeah, very good point. Very good point. Thank you, Felix. Yes, I agree. I think we can be a little bit more scientific in that. The term is defined. It's always for the next round, which opens immediately the question what to do with the experiments of the last round. Should we evaluate? And we should evaluate that. Well, I did that in an article, but maybe we should ask the community also whether they want to continue, whether they think the outcome is sufficient to continue. So that's a different topic, which is not yet in my slides, but maybe should have been there. And yeah, I agree that it would be good to format it as an experiment and think about the possible outcomes and the desired outcomes, or have some prediction about that and what to do, some scenarios. Yeah, that might make sense. So if anybody would like to help with that, I'm all open. Mauro.
No, something that I was thinking, and I read in the rules of the funding round rule, was the minimum exchange rate. So maybe one solution could be to, at the start of each round, set a gap of at this price or higher, the distributed amount of AGIX will be a number, and at this minimum exchange or lower, the maximum AGIX distribution will be this number. So this way, in each deep funding round, the users and the foundation will know an approximately of risk in the distribution of AGIX rewards.
Yeah.
And the rules will be
Sorry if I interrupt you, Mauro, but we already had such ideas. We wanted to make that algorithm even a little bit more sophisticated. Like if there are 500, so we could say that if there are 100 people, we will target a certain dollar amount. If there are 200 people, the dollar amount per person will be lower. If there are 500 people, the average earnings per people will be lower still, and indeed cater for different exchange rates. So this is just a small job that we need to do, and we will think of something and we will present it to you, so that actually we can define the real total reward at the end of a round. So when everybody has voted, and then in a predefined way, based on the algorithm, we will define, okay, we'll measure today, this is the total, and that will mean this is the average reward per person. Meaning that we don't have to state it at the beginning of a round and then 1 or 2 months elapse and we're in a different world suddenly. So that is indeed the goal. So we're aligned, I would say, but we would have done this if there weren't some personal issues both on my and Raphael's end that came in between. All right. So let's park part A. Let's not do that yet, but keep it in mind for future conversations. Then I think for part B, 1 and 2, I think are quite obvious. Those were the 1 and 2 that we already had in round 2. And then 3 is your proposal, Mauro. I think we should keep that in as well. The question is, do we want to keep 4 in, even though we might not be able to implement it yet? I would argue that we shouldn't ask these things to the community every second month. So we are asking it now. Let's ask it. Let's ask what their principal thoughts are on it. So I'm interested in the concept and the principles behind it and the way we implement it and how we move to a certain area. That is secondary, and we can continue to improve that. So who thinks 4 should be in?
I think I'm a strong believer in that 4. Yeah. Basically because I think in the how do we say it? In the interoperability of the proposers and the community members, I personally don't see a line that differentiates both of them. I see these are like the same people, depending on. So let's use an example. Let's say probably you're playing a match. At one point you're defending, at one point you are attacking. So it depends on where the ball is at a particular point. Your role can switch. So I personally don't see any distinction between these two, and I strongly think that it's quite encouraging if proposers actively engage in the discussions that are going on in the community. 2 things that happens with that is, 1, it makes them to have a stake in that particular community as well, or whatever process, let's call it process, because we have these cases where people come in, propose, and disappear. And what that does is it creates a system where people only want to benefit from that system without being part of the process or the community. I think much more would be like trying to make proposals to own a piece of the community or of the process in itself, and I feel like this incentivizes that, right? So that is my strong point in support of that. I feel like we can, like, there is no much clear distinction between these. And secondly, we would want these proposals to be part and parcel of the community, and this is very important. Maybe let me add this. I think this is one of the most unique, like, beautiful thing about deep funding. The fact that so far in the like the iterations I've seen and the ones I've also gone through to read, I realize that the people are giving genuine comments, and this is, so we would want to encourage that stuff that really makes us unique. And so to keep that, I think that point 4 is very important.
Okay, so your basic message, if I understand correctly, is that you want to motivate proposers to stick around and to become engaged community members.
Absolutely.
Very good point. Thank you. Guillermo.
Hey there. Okay, I want to lower my hand first. I think, again, I've been taking notes of all the comments since I'm participating on these governance calls. I think it's all the feedback have been always to improve the experiment. And I see the same example here. Following what Ubio mentioned, and following the the conversation we have on the last round about rewarding, not rewarding, what do we change, and then coming back from the council. It was a great experience, I think, for the whole community, I'm sure for the council, but being very effective and tangible on the cases we are discussing. Point 4. What Ubio is mentioning is, I think, is the result of the engagement we have. All the comments Enrique, Ubio made on my proposal, our proposal, were to make it richer. They want to make it better. The same with Ubio and all the comments he received. And if you reward or not the proposers for engaging on a proposal on the same pool, that will not change the possibility for them to influence in the wrong way by commenting. If you don't reward them, they will still use that loop or backdoor to do it. So if we don't close these backdoors, Peter have mentioned it several times, and Mauro did before. It's we don't have on the platform a way to avoid that people create 5 profiles and interact in different pools and influence good or bad. It doesn't matter if you reward them or not; they will still be able to do it. But we are discussing an empty point. Something that we will not be able to attack. And so what would be the difference if we reward them or not, or we reward the people that engage on the pool, that they present a proposal, and at the same time we'll be missing. So if we just limit the comments from the people that are on the same pool, we will be limiting the potential interaction from the community. The experiment from the second round where we start participating was amazing. I'm talking as a developer, as an entrepreneur, and as a creator. It was, for me personally, was amazing. It was amazing. And I'm still learning every single time I jump into these calls about a consensus, about ways to co-create. So if we don't close the back doors, we will not be able to apply this. So, and I'm not trying to jump into the next points of your agenda, but the proposal of verifying profiles only to be able to participate, engage, will be, and again, at the same point that having the talent scout. I wrote these proposals because of ideas that jump in these calls. They're not my ideas, they are your ideas. And so we need to discuss this. It's like pollution and the loop and the TerraCycle proposal. It's going back to a milkman. We don't need to do the trash. We need to stop the trash before it gets to the fucking supermarket. So what you do is to avoid the trash at the beginning. So reusable jars, and so it's a different way to have a sustainable and develop a co-creative community, and trying to avoid these loopholes from the starting point. So I understand that. For example, and also the other point, and with this I close. The quality of the engagement that we discussed. It can be good intentionally or bad intentionally, but still we need to qualify if it's the quality of that. If one line can be very clear, effective, and at the same time, there have been a lot of engagement that was, let's say, empty. Or so if we want to stop the gaming on the liquidation of these assets that we need to use to the community to enrich the results, we will always be like tapping on the holes, and another hole will come, and another hole will come, and that it will be, it will be cycling on following, how you say this in English? Give me a second. It's like following the rabbit always, 200 miles from behind. And we have an expression in Spanish for that. But that's all from my side. Sorry for.
Thank you. This was valuable. If you allow me a quick summary and feedback. So you're saying we won't, by not giving people rewards, we won't stop them gaming the system or attacking others for their own purposes. You're saying we don't really have the tools to avoid it because people can simply make another account and still do what they did before and get awarded for that. And in general, you're saying there are so many ways at this stage that gaming is possible, etc. And this is just one instance. Maybe we need to, and that is my interpretation, maybe we need to mature that system a little bit further before we go into these measures. The only reasoning against this that I have is it would look a little bit strange if somebody was harassing other people's ideas and would get awarded for it. I know if he does it under a different name, it would amount to the same, but it would look a little bit less weird. But I think you have a very good point. But Felix, what is your opinion here?
I think mostly leaning towards option 2, because it's weird. You want to say, okay, why does a proposer actually join? Because he has the hope of being funded, right? This is the actual incentive, I would say. And when we say, okay, we incentivize proposals anyway, then what we do is only ensuring that there's a quantity of proposals. Now we have the problem that we have to identify, okay, but we want to measure quality, which in any case adds overhead and complexity, very different to scale in this regard as well. Why we would assume the best proposals would be the ones to be voted on and receive funds. So I think we can make it more effective by simplifying, actually.
But if you choose for 2, then the argument of Guillermo, and I think Mauro or somebody else made it before as well, it can very easily be circumvented by creating a different account.
Definitely. But here the idea is that proposals should not be awarded for submitting proposals, right?
Yeah, but so if I'm a proposer, I will make the proposal under one name and I do all the feedback under another name, and then I get awarded still. And there's another issue related to this. Sometimes there are teams of people, a team with 4 people, and only one is identified as a proposer, but the others can still, and right now I played it by the book. So if you're a proposer, then you're the proposer, and I knew other people in the team would still get awarded. So it's difficult. Ubio.
I think so this conversation somehow leads us to why we all probably said maybe this discussion is a little bit quite early, because I'm seeing like some solutions that ties up with what Felix actually proposed that can somehow bring some level of alignment to what all of us are looking for, but I don't think it's possible right now. So I'm seeing this DF token as a possible solution to these issues that we're talking about, where these deep funding tokens can somehow give us because for me I see the deep funding token as not just a deep funding token. I see it as giving much more rights, privileges, utilities, and all of that to the community, right? So with this deep funding token, we can play a lot around it. We can do give one person one account and all this kind of stuff, and then you can comment on this and all of that. So we can get to the point where these tokens gives you the authority to discuss, to even comment and all of that. Like there can be a lot of use cases and then on that basis we can still reward. And that's why on Felix proposal on the tool, I talked about that. For me, I feel like a hybrid solution is going to be the most ideal case here, where we have these tokens, DF tokens, NFTs, together with some level of rewards. I think this is going to be the way out, but everything just somehow narrows back to the point that probably we are asking this question too early. But again, it's nice that we actually ask, because it allows us to observe and to know what we can probably do in future iterations.
Yeah, I completely agree. And this is actually a new insight during this conversation. So thanks a lot, everybody. This is really a helpful discussion. Thinking about it, we can only enforce 1 or 3. We can treat everybody equally. That's possible technically. And we can say we will only exclude awarded people because we know them. Actually, that would 3 also not, because they can still create another account. So the only option here that is technically possible is 1. I think we might be moving. There are options to move in a direction where we have better controls and checks. It might take a while for that to mature. That's a very interesting discussion. I hope we still have some time to start that discussion today. So my proposal right now, based on what you're saying, Ubio, and what based also on what Guillermo is saying and Felix, I think we should not have put this up to a vote at all. Because we need to explore and see what is possible, and then put it up to a vote when we also have better tools to enforce what we are aiming for. Which still leaves us with the question, what are we doing in round 3? Suppose that we wouldn't. I mean, there's still an option to put it to a vote if you want to, but suppose that we wouldn't. What are we doing in round 3? Well, one option would be like we did in this round, in the end, after feedback from you guys, and just say, well, we don't have proper ways to distinguish people yet, so let's just treat everybody equally, and with lower amounts, because this time it was really high. Maybe the whole issue will be a little bit less important or high impact. So in this governance round, we also are not putting forward rewards due to several circumstances. We already started it, we didn't define it in advance, and I think there were some other reasons also. For now, until we have a better solution or a new discussion on the same topic, I would suggest to keep it very simple, treat everybody the same in round 3 of deep funding, and for governance rounds, rely on reputation only and not give monetary rewards to be part of governance. Is that something you would be able to adhere to or comply to, or how do you say it?
I'm a little concerned to treat everyone equally, because if you have the limits of the winning proposal to not being awarded, if you treat everyone equally, they can comment whatever they want without a filter, and they will not care about gain of reputations to receive the votes of the community and fund the proposal, because maybe they can win both. Maybe they can receive the contribution rewards and win the proposal. So maybe we'll encourage more competition and not high quality feedback. And regarding that aspect, even in the same pool, so if I want to destroy my competition and I will be treated equally as everyone, I can comment whatever I want, non-quality comments, win my proposal, and also receive a reward. And that's not a thing that I think must be awarded.
First of all, Mauro, it is possible to rate feedback, right? So you can play around a little bit with the values for that. So if people get a lot of bad ratings, we can remove that reward if we put the right levers there. Ubio, you have your hand up also, and I really want to continue. We are already 1 hour and 10 minutes on this one slide.
Oh, yeah, not much. I don't want to say. I think you've already resonated my thoughts. I just wanted to say, in this round, like, let the ratings work. I think I don't think it worked last time. I may be wrong, but I think it should really work. It should work in terms of determining who will get rewarded and how much will get rewarded as well. Like, I think it should really play a factor here. Like, that's just what I wanted to add there.
Sorry, I don't quite understand what you're saying that we should do.
Yeah, I said I'm just resonating what you said. Okay. I wanted to say like, let the ratings be like, we should stick to the ratings. And like, it should really work. Like, if someone is being voted down, then the person should lose some level of reward or should not be rewarded if it passes a particular threshold. I think that if we set some things around that and the rating is really used, I think it can help a lot.
Yeah. So that's more a matter of tweaking, right? Giving 3 points for a bad comment and 1 point for a positive feedback, and we're looking into ways to make that more sophisticated over time. We have to acknowledge right now, people, that we're not perfect yet. There are a lot of things we would like to do and would like to have, but we simply don't have the tools yet. We're working on that on several ways. So that is the situation. And yeah, by saying we will treat everybody equally, we're saying basically it's not ideal, it's not what we want, but it's the best we can do at this moment. I wouldn't mind to go for 3 and say we will leave out the awarded teams, but then again, we still have the issue with teams with multiple people, and yeah, maybe we should just keep it very easy, very simple. Felix.
Gee, one question to Sway platform. Which kind of data can you export from there?
We're exporting basically all the proposals, the proposals and proposers and proposals, the amount of feedback given per feedback, per feedback, what the rating of it, thumbs up, thumbs down, whether smileys, emoticons, the whole thing, all that we can export right now. I would love to have a system where we have not just thumbs up or thumb down, but 1 till 5 stars, for instance, for feedback, to make it more sophisticated.
How is the export? Is it a CSV file?
Yes, and Robert Haas and the team who's doing the contribution tool, they have access to that, and they are using that also for their tool. And in my sheet, I think I showed it once, I have variables for each of these things and a number. So giving positive feedback, I think already in this round was 1, but giving that would give you 1 extra point. If you receive a thumb down, you would lose 3 points. But the fact of the matter is that much more people give thumbs up than thumbs down. I can imagine why, maybe even several reasons, but we can tweak that and we can play around, and we will improve the feedback system over time as well. So based on this discussion, my proposal is to continue as is, to give smaller HIX rewards, which we will predefine in some kind of algorithm that is predictable, but takes care of wild exchange rates, or sudden influx or outflux or of engaged people. Treat everybody the same, because we simply don't have the technology to make proper distinctions between people. But we will revisit it. We will revisit it when we have better tooling in place that allows us to have a better enforcement of this rule. Even if it's not 100%, nothing is 100% in life. But we'll park it for now, and then we'll ask it again to the community when we're in a better position to enforce this. Anybody against this proposal? I see some thumbs up, and please speak up if you think this is not the right way to go. And otherwise, let's continue to the next thing. And then also the question is, if we only have one proposal, oh, I skipped this one, but it was the first one. And also a valid outcome could be of this governance round that we will not ask any questions to the community, or that we will try it out first and then afterwards ask the community, should we continue? That's also an option. But let's first have a look at this one. So the context to those who are new to this is, there are some, I noticed there were a number of projects in the previous round that were asking for a lot of money, and were cool projects in themselves, and I would love to see them succeed. But it was doubtful whether the amount of funding was balanced against the added value they actually brought to our platform. They have a very cool product, but maybe the added value was not always that high for the platform. So to make that a little bit clearer, we as a team made this proposal to ensure that the proposals we're voting for are voted for the right reasons. That is basically the reason. So imagine that you have a proposal where you do something cool. You have a budget asked for 100K, but only 5K is used for creating a service, and the rest is just for any interesting proposal, with the added risk that maybe that 5K will only be done as a last milestone, and then maybe at 95% the user says, well, I won't finish it, sorry, I have problems, I can't finish it, or they leave or whatever. So I've thought about some ways to mitigate this problem, and I've added 3 here. I saw your hand up, Felix, but now it's down again. Okay, then I'll just continue and then we can comment on this. So the easiest option, so these 3 are increasing in seriousness and strength. So the lowest threshold would be just to ask teams, listen, you ask for $100,000 or whatever, but please specify how much of this amount is actually being targeted to creating a service, and then put that at top of the proposal in a special field, and put it on the summary so that everybody can see immediately how much of that amount is actually going to platform development. And I mean, this is not a bad thing, right? Somebody can make a front-end solution which has no service developed at all, but it is a hit and it will consume 1, 2, or 3 services on our platform. Then that is the greatest thing, that which might be well worth that money. But it's important that we choose it for the right reasons. So the option B would be a little bit stricter. Yeah, you have to mention how much of your budget is going to developing a new service. if that is the case. But you're also required to start with that milestone and not do it at the end of all the other stuff you're doing. And then we can be a little bit, we don't have to be super strict about the first milestone. If somebody has 10 milestones, it can also be the second or the third, but not the last one. So that would be option B. Option C is the most strict of all. Just split it. Just say, hey, we are developing a service. This is the service. It will cost you this much. Say yes or no. And once it's on the platform, it's there for anybody to use. And secondly, we're creating a front-end solution which will consume that service. And we believe we can make it so popular that it will lead to a massive amount of API calls. And that in itself, making a killer app like that for our service, for our platform, would be very valuable. So this is not a judgment call on a certain type of proposals. They can be good, they can still be adding value. This is just to make it clear and separated so that we know what we're actually voting for. Ideas and suggestions. We don't necessarily need to go into what we think the best option is. We can put that up to a vote. But the question we should answer right now, at least, is, does this warrant a vote from the community, or should we just pick one of these and give it a try and see what happens, and then maybe go to the community or not? If we want to do this, are these three options the right options for us, or do we need a fourth or whatever, or are two enough? Mauro.
I think that Rafael talked first. I don't know.
No, please go.
I heard some cracking sounds, but didn't know where.
I did not raise my hand, so please, Mauro. Yes, you're right.
No, I think that option A is more reasonable because it will be help to the reader and the voter to understand, and the non-technical people to understand the proposal and which way add value. I really don't like option B. I think it's too restrictional. And option C for me is in the middle indeed. It's not, I see option B more restrictional than option C, but that's my opinion. But my favorite here is number A.
Is option B a problem for you? I think it's not so weird to ask people, listen, you're asking 100K for a front-end solution that consumes the service that you're going to build on the platform. We want to ensure that you are at least making that service before you create that front-end solution. Otherwise, it would be very easy for anybody with any idea, no matter what, saying, oh, I have this great idea. Oh, and I also make a service. And then do that as the last thing and never show up. It would be so easy to game the system.
It's true, but how it's writing is really shocking because as a first milestone, indeed, when you have, when you have a proposal, you need to set the team, start paying salaries, start dedicating time to the proposal. So how it's writing as a first milestone is shocking and maybe will disencourage team to propose or be in engagement in this. I understand the arguments behind it, but for me, it's not an accurate one. But maybe it could be presented different, will be more accurate, but how it's right now, in my opinion, I don't like it.
Okay, I'm still not quite sure, but I will stop argumenting right now. Rafael, what is your feedback?
Yeah, I'm going towards B as well. Au contraire, Mauro, I like B very much. though I do have some points. I guess, Mauro, your point goes when you read within practical limits. So if these practical limits indeed needs to be the third milestone, the service itself, it can be analyzed and brought to the third milestone, for instance, because you have something to do before. My only point here would be the fact that perhaps we would be blocking a few projects to participate because they have this AI service thing and they have to put it in the last milestones, or at least not the last, but the last ones. So, but honestly, I guess would be a very few percentage, a very short percentage of projects that would fit that. So I like option B here, having this, hey, you want to deliver the project? Okay, but first do what we want you to do in order to improve our platform and bring more awareness around and everything that we want to have. And then you can deliver the rest of it because we understand that it's going to help the project in general. So, yeah.
I'm sure somebody else also has some thoughts on this.
Okay, I'm going for it. I agree with Rafa, and even though I consider Mauro's point real, I don't know if that's the right word to use. It can be shocking, it can be all of this, but it's a way to ensure not only the treasures, money, also the commitment with people to deliver. At the end, it's all about results. Good intentions are never enough. Good skills are not always right. So, and even what if option B, option A plus the additional plus C. I saw a lot of proposals, sorry, on last round, have even our proposal. You Jan mentioned it. It's very ambitious. I have heard that from our project to make a renewable energy social company and make energy and use the money profit to do sustainable. It's very ambitious. It is. So you need to set up short-term goals to have a necklace at the end, and dividing objectives is sometimes the best strategy to have results and to use properly your resources. I don't know if it's always, it's a variable that it always have the same effect, but it teaches you to limit your experimentation and to go with certainty. It's like resources for a meal, you know, or bottles. If you want to get drunk, buy this one bottle. If you want to have a nice taste, well, you can buy all of this. It's going to be a different, you know, a budget. But what is your intention? Get drunk or have a good taste on a crystal glass? So I understand that the need of doing this for what you mentioned. I haven't. I don't know if you guys are involved in it with more time. What are the results for the platform? Are we having traffic? Are we having engagement? Are we having, so all of this at the end, it brings all to results. So I understand it's a novel state of this, and it's still very, very early, as we all mentioned a couple of times on the call, but still, yeah, I think that it's a good idea to address the problem.
Yeah, so I think we have a risk here that somebody spends 95% of the budget on something that is only usable for themselves, and there's 5% of the budget which would be usable for everybody on the platform. It would be on the platform, it would be available for everybody, it would help immediately. That 95%, if they are doing their job really well, would also be valuable for the whole community and for the platform, but only if that 5% is in place first. That 95% is nothing for the platform if that 5% hasn't been done before. The other way, that 5% has been done and the 95 will not work, we still have that service. And I use these percentages because that is, in fact, sometimes really the case, that 95% of the budget is for a front-end solution and 5% is for development of the service. So in this case,
right.
I would
I'm sorry to interrupt you, John, but also you mentioned added value. What the added value for the platform usage and to bring a service, and also what you said for the community. So it's a tool that other developers can use, and then it's a tool that will bring added value with the alignment with the objectives of the Singularity Net. The purpose is something that it's sustainable. It's something that is involved with creating AI for everybody. It's something so that also brings a judgment on the proposal. Is something that I don't know if it's legally. We talk about legal items a couple of times on this code, but it's also is something that our proposal haven't been found on round 2, but I'm sure there is a second step if you are that you have a lot of contract and a lot of elements that need to ensure this to bring a tangible result for the treasurer's effort. At the end, it's all about budgeting and having a pipeline and bringing something. I totally agree with that. Sorry to interrupt you. So.
Thank you. Yes, personally, I'm really quite passionate here that A is not enough. Thinking about it, because it would be so easy to game the system, to take $100,000 and run with the money, premeditated even, and maybe more often not premeditated, but because these things happen and you do what you're good at, and in the end, when it comes to creating the AI service, you find out that it's harder than you thought, or you find out that the idea you had is not feasible technically or whatever, and then the whole thing falls apart. But it falls apart after we have spent most of the budget. So I'd rather have that discovery at the beginning. So B and C would work for me. A would also work, but we would put more confidence in the community, in the judgment of the community, of judging the maturity of the team, for instance. I'm a little bit afraid that some people that are voting, and that was also one of the comments in this proposal, are just swept away by having this very cool thing and don't have the added value of the platform on top of their mind. They just read about this really cool project and they want it to succeed. And I think it's our job to ensure that, to put in the proper guardrails that helps the community make wise decisions. So, unless anybody has a different view here, the question that remains is, will we put this up to a vote? Let's start with that one. Should we put this question up to a vote? And if not, what are we going to do?
Well, you're going back to A, you put it on a vote. And I have a question, John. I'm sorry to jump on you again. Have this case A of people disappearing for $100,000 happened already?
No, but there are a number of projects which haven't progressed very far. There are a number of projects that have done a lot, but not yet that much on the AI service part. So in one, I'm not really concerned. I know the people and I have faith in them, but still, the main trigger for me was to see that there were, and I won't call any names here, but to see there were a number of projects in round 2, maybe also by people that weren't that familiar, that maybe were more familiar with Catalyst than with deep funding. And with that, they thought if we just build stuff on the blockchain, it's already valid. So I want to ensure that everybody understands that the purpose of deep funding is to help grow the platform, nothing else. That is the purpose of deep funding at this stage. Maybe in the future we'll widen that scope, but this is really needed at this time. So the trigger is that I want to avoid that we're sponsoring big projects that in their proposal have some idea, oh, we can put a AI service, but may not have the capabilities or the knowledge or the experience to build this service and to even assess whether creating such a service is realistic. So it's very easy to make a solution, to think of a solution and then say, oh, and for this we'll make an AI service without too much knowledge about AI services. And if we don't put these rails in place, then we put this burden up to the community to make, for each and everyone to make the assessment. Does this team have enough knowledge? Will they be able to pull that off? Can they prove it to me at a very early stage of the project? So I think that is asking a little bit too much of the community at this stage.
And John, this will be implemented in all the pools, in pool A or some specific pockets?
Well, it wouldn't fit for marketing. It wouldn't fit.
Oh, for sure.
For ideation, it wouldn't fit. So it would be mainly pool A and B. Probably it also wouldn't fit in pool E for
tooling.
Because there may not be an AI service there at all. I also want to point out that it's still possible to create a proposal just for a front-end solution. If it uses an existing AI service on our platform, you can do that, and you can ask $100,000 for it, and maybe it's a very sensible thing and something that I would gladly support if it's really a good proposal. So no objections to that. But indeed, very good point, Mauro. I think this would apply to pool A and B. Ubio.
All right. So I think this is probably.
Oh, sorry. Correction. Actually, this is just for pool A, because for pool B is for existing services. So there the service already exists and it's only should be onboarded. So this is just for pool A. But pool A is most substantial.
And pool E about tooling, not will be.
No, because tooling may not require any AI service at all, and usually it won't.
Okay.
Okay. So first of all, my idea around talking about the community making like the right decision, maybe this is calling for the need for something like a voter's handbook, probably something that a handbook that people can probably go through to understand the difference, because like people are coming from different communities, and people, like, especially being how close we are to the Catalyst community, and of course from other communities people will also be coming, and people always tend to judge things from what they know and what they are. So I think this is probably calling for a handbook, a voter's handbook, where we can put these guidelines and let people get to understand what this is.
Yeah.
Secondly,
good point. That also ties into one of the other discussion points that we had after this one. Deep funding verified users. That was a proposal. So based on what conditions do we verify people? Maybe we can ask them to do a small questionnaire so that they understand the purpose before they are allowed to vote and propose, etc. So that is a separate discussion from now. Would like to go into that discussion in more in depth, but tonight or today, that time-wise that doesn't look realistic anymore.
Yeah, I had a second point.
Yeah. Oh, go on.
Okay, so my second point is probably we should move towards what I call proof of achievement model more than a funding model. So the proof of achievement model would mean that everyone, and this is, for me, this is not only limited to pool A, this is even up to any pool. Because we need to be sure that the person is capable of implementing what the person says he can. So what's the first step? Once you're funded, we can put a 20% budget or 10 to 20% of budget that goes into your first step. It is until the implementation of that first step that we can now have faith. So faith is good, but at least faith should be on the basis of something.
Yeah.
So
but that's already the case, right? We do milestone-based disbursements. So if somebody doesn't deliver his first milestone, he doesn't get paid.
Yeah.
If he doesn't deliver the second milestone, he doesn't get paid for the rest.
So can we also do this for everything? Like, let's get to know what's the first thing you're gonna do, and if it's related to AI, let's put that in. Like, start with that, and then for the one that has the AI services, and even for other pools, tooling and everything, like let's get it clear that once it's an AI service, you have to start with that, and this is so it's until this is implemented, we can now talk about any further stuff. I think that model would also be very effective, and I don't want us to only limit it to pool A. We can extend it to probably everything.
Yeah, so that milestone principle is everywhere where there are milestones. So that is more or less in place, I would say. And that is also something that I value very much. I always say that was one of the best decisions we made, to have milestone-based disbursements. That makes our life easier and makes us more careful about budget. Coming back to one more feedback on you, Ubio. Even if we have that handbook for users, it would still be a lot of work for them to assess the team capability, and it might be easy to fake team capability. So how do you know it's real, etc.? So there will still be a lot of holes. I think that there is some merit in doing something like that. Not sure if it would solve this issue per se. Regarding voting, so I think the question here is, do we want to put this one thing up to a vote right now and round up the community, put a lot of attention to it just for this one question? Or will we choose one of these options for now, experiment with it, see what works, and then maybe, based on the outcomes, have a question: should we continue, or should we not continue, or should we change it? Another part of this would be, we could also, if we would put this question up to a vote, we could also add the experiments from last round to a vote. And those were two. One is Pool B, existing services, which didn't live up to the full potential that I had for it. We have some ideas on how to improve that, but in this case, didn't quite live up. And Pool C, ideation, which also didn't live up. But the reason for that is that there was this one big whale that had a lot of negative impact on these proposals. So in these two cases, I wonder if it's also too early to stop this experiment, basically. So my question to you is, should we go forward with the vote? If we go forward, which things are we going to ask the community? And one more food for thought here, it will take time. So organizing the vote, taking time for voting, analyzing it, giving feedback will at least take 3 weeks, maybe 4. That time we won't be able to start a new deep funding round. I'm not trying to lead you in any direction here. No, I'm truly open to your ideas about this.
But to vote this will delay the launch of the next round?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
At least, well, there are other. It's more complex than that, actually. Thinking about that right now, because the next round of deep funding is dependent on the outcome of the governance round. So if we do a vote, we have to wait until we know the outcomes before we can start the next round. So there's a clear restriction. However, I just thought of that. If we don't do this, there's still the supervisory council process. And there's another consideration there, whether we want to treat these things as completely separated events. Maybe we should. I'm not 100% sure.
And the options A and B can be voted separately or must be together?
What do you mean with option A and B?
That because I think that maybe option A and B are already to be voted, but I'm asking if they can be voted separately. If I can vote, I agree with A and not with B and that kind of things.
Oh yeah. So if for this question, A and B, so it would be you can vote either A, B, or C because I think they're increasing. B includes A. So if we go for B, we will also implement A. And if you choose for C, then A and B are not relevant anymore.
Okay, I think these aspects are already able to vote. I'm not sure about C, but I would like to see when we vote more clear redaction or writing in B, because we discussed it today and we talk about the details of what it means, but maybe from once you vote to understand it better. But I think that we are able to, my opinion again, to vote these options for the next round of deep funding.
So if we want to go for a vote, then I can imagine that over the next few days, we will put this up on a Google Doc and we will ask you or whoever is interested to give their comments and then create some kind of consensus on the exact wording. I hope that wouldn't take more than 1 or 2 days or something. We could also do it within this session, but I think it would be better to give everybody some space to think about it and do it properly. And we're running out of time.
So in essence, are we only voting for this particular, because I was thinking it would be nice if we had votes. We are voting on a lot of topics. Think out of all of this, this is one topic that we are saying, okay, it should be nice to get a vote on. But are we only voting on this? How proper is it now? I'm not saying it is, but how proper is it to just spend all of the energies and the time to vote on only one topic? Like, that's just my concern.
Yeah, that's my concern as well. So is it worth it, basically? Or can we land on one of these solutions and then give it a try and then still have the option for a vote next time? I think these are the ones that I can be mistaken, but in my perception, these two are the only ones that have a level that is ready and concrete enough to have a vote on in the first place. And a little bit to my surprise, the first of the questions, we landed up on the outcome that maybe it's better not to vote yet. So that leaves us with only one question. And the experiments of last round were, my feeling there, my very personal feeling here is that maybe we need to give them another chance before validating whether, if and how we should continue. So that's in that case, that would leave us indeed with only one question. And yeah. So thinking about this, guys, I think going forward, also with the whole decentralization thing, this also is a sign that we have to have more diversity in more levels, in when we put something up for a real community vote and when we can do something in the middle. So we need other mechanisms than either centralized or completely community vote. We need something in the middle to keep it practical and faster in things like this. But we will get there as well.
And maybe also looking on formalizing a little bit, but because yeah, this is almost a year already that the governance calls happen, right? And also to see a little bit, look in the back and to say, hey, here in the past happened a lot of decision making already in these calls. And this also kind of already a thing we not really formalized yet, I would say. But for example, yeah, to this point here, I think
you're right. You're right. I did make a suggestion on how to proceed with a new elected supervisory council in place. So there are some ideas on how we can continue. But there are some things that need to be done first, like the election of a new supervisory council, and then going forward to a new community governed entity. Peter.
Yeah, quick note on that, if I may. I feel we shouldn't wait for a supervisory council election. Like, for all we know, there's some bump in the road there as well. And if that would mean an additional month of delays, yeah, I don't know. It would be...
I'm not saying we need to wait for them, but Felix says we need to formalize some things. But we are just at the threshold of creating this new community governed entity with a community supervisory council, with some clear ideas how this will work in the future. So we don't need to stop in the decisions at hand. And therefore, actually, I think we can be a little bit pragmatic right now with the perspective of making proper procedures rather quickly after. Or are you saying we should create those procedures now? Because that will also take time. That's not something we do in one session.
What would be cool to say, maybe making focus of then the next funding round independent from supervisory council, not going for the vote, though still taking time to formalize and settle some things, maybe also looking back to say, okay, what actually happened in last funding rounds? What are real low-hanging fruits which we can just bring, let's say, in the next series of governance calls, for example? Just giving some time to adjust and update some stuff, but not relating too much on supervisory council. The supervisory council I see much more like a first real initiative from our SynComDAO, actually, and deep funding and ambassador support, and definitely less overlap, but yeah, not seeing this.
Yeah, so I think the problem here is that we don't have a body that can make decisions on behalf of the community. Either we can do it, but who says we are entitled to do it? Or I can do it together with Raphael, which we've done for a lot of things. Or we can ask it to the whole community. But we need to have this, in my perspective, we need to have something in between there that allows us to have some kind of mechanism which is supported and grounded in the community, by creating a number of decisions quicker, and then deciding which of these topics are really relevant enough to warrant a community vote. So that is my envisioned process here, and what that body would be exactly, and how it would be selected, and how it would function, and who will be part of it can be open to discussion, and how dynamic it should be. But somewhere in that direction, I see a clear solution for this, because you don't want to be asking every single thing to the community, or ask them to vote on 123 small things. But you also don't want to have a whole campaign just for one question, unless it's a really important question. Then it's completely valid, like the phase 2 proposal.
Well, in my mind, the current meeting would be well, at least the current version of that body.
Yeah, so that's a pragmatic way, right? So sorry I'm interrupting you, but that's what we're doing right now. So we already made the decision that we wouldn't put the first question to a vote, and now we're making the decision whether we will put the second one to a vote. But Felix says, listen, we've been doing this for a year now, not quite, but is this still the proper way to do this? Shouldn't we formalize it more? Which is a valid question, and something we should do and we should grow into. But just like the things in round 1, unfortunately, we don't have the tools and processes in place yet to execute on the things that we want. And I am more impatient than any of you to have these things in place. Let's go back to, let's put it in a different way. Suppose we wouldn't ask this to the community. Could we land, just us here, because that's the best thing we have right now? Would we be able to land on a decision what we will do for round 3? So it could either be A, B, or C, or it could be nothing.
I think we can. I mean, they're incremental, as you pointed out. So I don't know. We can just go by them one by one and see what people feel.
Quick vote right now, hands up, and for each of the options, and see what comes out of it. Yeah.
I think we can poll.
Sorry, Ubio.
We can rather use a poll.
Yeah, I don't think we have time to do this in a proper pool right now, and we would have to create that pool. And by the way, I don't see Raphael anymore. Was he kicked out with all the other people?
He mentioned on Slack he had to drop.
Okay.
Didn't specify, but had to drop.
Yeah, no problem, no problem. No, so let's just do it very simple and just hold up our hands. We're just with, right now with 8 people. And just get a feel. And if we're really not aligned, then I don't know what to do. So who is for? Yeah, I'm now thinking that I'm even not sure what I am in favor of. We could also do it differently. We could also vote options away. Say, who thinks option A should not be the one? Let's start with that one. Who thinks that we should keep everything as is and not go for any of these solutions? Felix, you think we should keep it just as it is today?
Yep.
All right.
Ubio too, I think.
Sorry?
Ubio too?
Ubio, you have your hands up. Is that because you're in favor of, or?
Yeah, in favor.
You think we should not touch this, not do anything?
Right now, I think so.
All right. Let's just continue with the other ones and have it over with. Who think we should opt for option A? Also 2. Who thinks we should go for option B? 3. Who thinks we should go for option C? No one. I might have, at the start of this session, I would have voted for option C. I think it's a little bit too far, also without a community vote. So option B would be feasible, but we do see very diverse landscape here. 2-2-3 is not a good basis to make a decision.
Also noting that I think everybody voted, but we are with 8. So,
oh, and we have. Oh yeah.
Also, when you
2TT through 2-2-3 would make 7. So one person's vote wasn't properly accounted for, I think.
and it's an abstract voting, because 2-2-3, including that the first 2 says none of them should be touched. The whole summary of the whole says, okay, it shouldn't be touched. We have too much friction. So it's a double result, actually. This is how equal is not always equal, and less is not always less. In this regard, the first 2 triumph the other 5.
This is a really hard one for me, because I'm really passionate that we should go for B at least, because I would hate to see a lot of budget being burned on nice projects that don't give any value to the platform. But if we don't reach a decision here, I don't want to push that right now. And if it is so diversified and we don't want to offer this to the community because it's just a single thing, then I think we have no other option just to pool this, just like the other one, and just keep it as it is. If we don't have a clear decision to go in another direction, we should keep it as it is. And it really breaks my heart a little bit, because I think it's a bad decision. But this is the community in action. That is 8 people out of the whole community in action. But that's the tools that we have right now. So unless anybody has a better idea or a new insight or an argument that will win everybody over to whatever solution we want to land upon, I think the outcome of today would be that we will have no vote for governance. That in this part we will keep things as they are, and we might revisit it at a later moment or put it up to a vote when we have more things to have the community vote upon, or until we have a different governance method that we can use for this. And then for the other one, yeah, we will also leave it as it is. So we talked for 2 hours and we'll leave everything as it is. That's also an interesting outcome. But it's, yeah, maybe that's the proper thing to do right now.
Sometimes it's funny. Sometimes you have to do stuff in order to figure out, hey, it was actually quite okay as it was. But you first have to do it in order to recognize.
Yeah, I'm really tempted to try and convince you guys again from my point of view, but it will be an endless discussion. So I did my best, and this is the outcome, and we'll have to live with it.
Yeah, I think what we're definitely saying is let's try it again and then change things. Because some of the changes should not be, we've not gotten a lot of or sufficient information to make sufficient changes. Like we just want to look more, observe more. And I think if we have this same discussion some other time, I think the decision will be quite different.
Yeah, so we will observe more. We'll see what happens. The thing is that even if we do round 3, maybe it will be a year before we see the results of that. Because if in round 3 there is a project that as I outlined, that will get a large reward, and they will develop for a year, and after a year we find out they just don't do the last step, and then we're fucked. But it will take us a year to find out, and maybe in the meantime there will be 2 other rounds or 3 or whatever. So it could be a very expensive way of observing. That's what I'm saying. There are a lot of hands up, and I'm talking too much already. Guillermo. And then it's way past time already, so let's try to wrap this up. And keep...
Same here. I have to pick up my boy. Yeah, so sorry. Going back to spending time and discussing proposals and not having a resolution. I understand maybe we are not a number enough that represents the community, but still I support you, Jen, with I'm thinking of my budget. I'm thinking like a family, and having if I want to get drunk or not, and all these metaphors that I put together. But definitely we need to be responsible with Treasury, and I think we as a whole. Maybe it's not a decision that we represented a small vote, but maybe it's a decision that's for the Supervisory Council. Definitely that give the rules and bring rules to a DAO, and if not what's a contract of a community, what is the constitution of a law. Maybe the idea behind the SIP on Cardano. Establish rules because it will be a long and harsh for the community and for the Treasury to read these results 1 year from now and not having the results they're looking from their budget or the money they're pouring into developers. So yeah, that said, still, I think that responsibility is the only key for community creation.
Yeah.
At the end, you need to make a decision.
That this is not a decision to do nothing. This is no decision. So we are parking it. Right. We're making no decision until we have either a better governance mechanism or another opportunity to put it forward to a better representation of the community than just us here together.
Yeah, as you mentioned, governance tools. So looking forward to discuss the governance proposals deeper on the next call. And with this, I say, hey, guys, love you, have to run. My kid is waiting for me.
See you love you right back, Guillermo. Thank you.
See you guys, ciao.
Okay, guys, let's wrap it up quickly if possible. Felix?
I think to get actually a great answer, even a greater question, and I think from right now also, what you can see is, okay, there won't be votes for governance round 2, then an interesting question to ask, then later, why? Right? Why haven't every question votes? And actually to say, oh, okay, maybe we didn't arrive yet to really define the right questions, also where we actually see, okay, this is valid for a vote. And also where we see now with all the moving pieces, Supervisory Council, where we say, oh, okay, this could be something delegated to them. It will be quite a topic actually figuring out where is the scope then actually for which kind of questions where we want to have community vote on regarding governance rounds.
Yeah.
And taking lessons from now already could be quite helpful there, because after all, it's a beautiful outcome and quite insightful, I'd say.
Sorry, taking lessons from what?
From right now already, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's here already. It's actually it takes quite the effort to formulate the right questions.
So this governance round was still very valuable. We have a lot of good discussions. And if we land on a decision not to have a vote, but based on well thought through arguments, that is also a good outcome. So no regrets here. Mauro.
Hey, John. Well, I made a reflection about you say that it hurts your heart seeing that are some resources being burned. And I think that your management so more information that the community does about how was this process. And maybe I think that information, it's pretty important to vote to this aspect. So maybe a possible solution will be for next week in the first 10 minutes, so you to explain this info when you see the resources were born to avoid this, and make the voting again, because today we were 10 people and always we are around 14, and no one reached to this part of the meeting because we talk a lot. So maybe made a wrap up in the first 10 minutes of the next round to have a better opinion of the community, and you present this info that you have as a member of the deep funding team that we doesn't have as a community members. I know that because I was preparing the interviews for the deep funding round 1, and I understand your perspective, but I would like to see on a little presentation about why do you think the option B is super important, and to see what happened in the last round that encouraged us to take the path. This is my opinion, of course, and maybe it could be a great solution to have this little presentation in the next meeting, the first 10 minutes, and to vote again, so everyone who can be here or was here today but need to rush, for example, Rafael and Sebastian is here, but for example, Tommy, that is always here, Steven, that is always here, working, Thibaut, etc., Kawe, to vote to this important aspect. And I think it's a good solution, because you say that for the deep funding team is super important. And if you want us to understand why it's so important, maybe give us this information or a little presentation to explain why it's so important based on what happened, will be better. Only my perspective of that.
Yeah, thank you. What I will do for sure is next week in the town hall, if I have 10 minutes to give a short presentation, is to present the outcomes of this covenant round. I think if I should give a presentation with my arguments for doing this, it will not be 10 minutes, because if we are in a larger group, there will be a lot of feedback. And if we want to get to a vote or whatever, then basically we're doing what we promised not to do, is hijack the town halls for governance things. So I think as outcomes come, this is what we have right now. This is what we have to do, and we have to accept that our decision-making process is not mature enough yet, in my opinion. And that is something we need to work on, and we will work on, and we are working on. But maybe this is a good incentive and helps us to at least drive that process forward further.
I agree, but also from my opinion, I think that I'm voting without knowing all the info, you know? Of course, it's already in the deep funding blog, but when you see, it hurts your heart seeing how some resources are burning, and some people don't answer and don't go forward with the project. I think that I'm voting without seeing all the movie, how we say here in my country, without all the info to make appropriate vote. But
yeah, so what I want to avoid, Mauro, is a situation where the voting doesn't go as I like, and therefore I explain it once again and again and push it until it goes as I want. That's not the kind of process that I think is. So I'll take my loss here as a showcase that I'm willing to take my loss sometimes and not always push the decision that I want, even though I think it's not the right thing to do. So that is community governance, and with the limited tools that we have. And it's for me only an incentive to make sure that we create better governance procedures, which also will end up in decisions that I will not always like or approve or whatever, but at least ensure that they're properly grounded in some way in some representation of the community, and in a better way than this more or less accidental group of people right here. So I talked about supervisory council. I think another direction which we can explore later on would also be something like a more formal focus group, which might also be connected to that topic of verified users. So I can imagine that we would be able to create some kind of focus group together with the supervisory council that would be able to make more decisions on behalf of the community with a better foundation. So thank you all. We'll look back sometime at this meeting and hopefully say that this was a hard one, but a necessary one, and the start of the birth of something very good. And we didn't get to all the other really exciting topics, which is usually the case, but we'll keep them for next time. And together internally we'll have a thought on the deep funding round 3. I have a look with Felix and with others on the timelines for Supervisory Council. There's some work I have to do there, and determine whether we want to orchestrate these things together or if we want to treat them as two separate things and go on with one, even if we haven't figured out the exact path for the other. So thank you, everybody. Have a great day and see you next week in the town hall.